This looks more hopeful.
Yes, we are live.
Yes, that one worked. We are there. Yay, welcome to the Self-Help Bookshelf. Yes, that is the right channel. I've been on so many different podcasts today. It's amazing. And yeah, so welcome to the Self-Help Bookshelf, where we help you find your higher self through personal development strategies, where we help you find ways to make small changes that have a significant impact on your life, or to help you understand what you need for your healing journey. And that's today's topic, is emotional healing. Now, last week we had an amazing conversation, quite in depth, about physical healing and healing in general. And that's very much Rory's topic. So he led the floor last week with that. And today with the emotional healing, I'm going to cover a little bit more on that, because as you see down here, it says emotional awareness expert. That's very much my journey, as well as Rory's.
And who are you?
That's a good question. Yes, well, nameless. Hey Reeve, I am Kay Reeve, an emotional awareness expert. I love helping adults, whether it's parents at home, educators in education system, or managers and leaders in the workplace, to support teenagers and young adults through mental health and neurodiversity, through helping them with visual learning tools. So this is my book, Brain Unchained, and I help people understand the emotional cycle diagram, visual learning for neurodivergent teenagers and young adults. And this is Who Are You? Yeah, who are you?
Who am I? I am Rory Lemon. I go by Rory Lemon Aid on the internet, AID for help. And I'm a neurodiversity and creative flow coach. And I help heart-centered, neurodiverse creatives that are sensitive, struggling with scatter, procrastination, and perfectionisms to get their projects out there, to put their visions into action for a sustainable and inclusive world.
Amazing. And that's exactly what happened when I started speaking to Rory, and we ended up with the Self-Help Bookshelf. I've mentored Rory and Emma Oldershaw to publish their books, talking to more people looking to publish soon. And this group coming together, followed by the High Leverage Actions podcast, was all part of my vision that Rory helped me put into place. So thank you, Rory. And it's awesome that, you know, we work together and support each other in so many ways. And one of the things that we also really connected over was the topic of emotional healing. So as well as Rory does Rory does the full holistic program, whereas I'm really niched down on the emotional awareness. But we both have this massive connection around emotional healing. And so for me, emotional trauma is a massive thing. From when I was raising my son with neurodiversity, with suicidal depression, and he went through years and years of a very deep, dark depression, very often verging psychosis as well. And so for me, it was when everything else had failed to support him that I had to find a way to help him heal emotionally. And I realized he couldn't understand his emotions because he couldn't see them. So for me, I have really focused on starting from the ground up. That emotional awareness to me is the first step towards healing, because how can we heal something until we know what it is we're healing? How can we teach something unless we've learned it first? So for me, the emotional journey begins with the core emotions and understanding yourself, your own feelings, your own emotions, and how that, and I think back to, you know, humans have existed on this earth for thousands upon thousands of years, probably millions of years. I'm not a geology or historical expert, but however long humans have existed on the earth, everything has changed so much in how society exists on this planet. And yet the one thing that has never changed is the emotional cycle. And the fact that it is subject to a lot of emotional trauma, a lot of damage, you know, whether it is societal, whether it is the self-sabotage. And there are so many ways in which emotions can be damaged. Now, physically, if we are injured, we know how to heal that. We go to a doctor, we go to the hospital, we maybe apply some salve or a plaster. But emotional healing has always been much more difficult. especially with self-care. And a lot of people don't go and get the help they need. And that is what we're here for. So I'm going off on tangents here all over the place already, Rory. I am so focused on that core emotional healing. And then I'm going to hand the floor to you, Rory, because Rory does something on a whole different level to me. Would you like to explain yours?
Um, uh, Thanks for sharing. I would, just coming from a space of um emotions, just breaking it down a little bit to because there's mental, like we said before, there's the holistic approach. There's mental, which is associating with thoughts and how we picture things and into where ideas come from, and then there's the body and the physical. So, there's stuff that's going on in our bodies. And then the way I like to categorize it is that the emotional piece is the reactivity piece in between the mind and the body as a core reactivity to what is perceived is going on. And I know we've done a talk already on this around what are the emotions before as well in the past, but I think it's worthwhile clearing that up. Well, the way I describe it is that the emotions aren't the feelings that we have. So the emotion is like the deep psychological belief systems that are going on that react to what's going on physically and mentally. So within that space of it's that react and response, cause and effect of something that's happening or perceived as happening. And so with emotions there, the healing part is where something is happening to resolve something consistently or stay in balance. So to heal the emotions in itself is it's almost like not a forcing thing because how do I put it? Because the brains, the bodily intelligence, the higher intelligence, all these different intelligences that are going on, they um they're doing their best with whatever we know
Yeah.
is happening. So healing in itself just gets to have space to do so. That's really the thing. It's not necessarily focusing on making healing happening because that's what the body and the brain wants to do and does do when there's a knowledge that it's okay for it to go ahead and do it without poking and pressing and reminding that something is broken. So it's almost like emotional healing comes down to what we believing about our bodies or our minds that may be not working well. I would call it disruptive creativity when that is happening, when we're focusing on what's not working. Um, it's okay to have a snapshot to go, oh yeah, this is where I'm at, this is where I was before, and maybe I'm improving, or maybe I'm getting worse from where I was before, and where do I want to go, and what do I get to do that will allow the space to feel and not necessarily just feel, but know
Yeah.
that something will be happening that is allowing the repair to occur. So
Yeah.
before I go down more of a rabbit hole, I just wanted to clarify a few things there because really, if we're talking about emotional healing, the only way to get to those emotions is through the subconscious brain, and that in itself won't listen if there's overwhelm or stress in the forefront of the mind. And so how can we relax, and using relaxation techniques and inform ourselves with little ways that we know can help, so our mind can believe that we're doing our best and we're focusing on those things, and also what is actually removing anything that's causing sluggish physical healing. Because again, we're mainly concerned about protecting our body and living in the reality of the world, so we can't necessarily separate the mind and the body, although you can look at them separately and work on ways in which to feel safe and know what to do with reinforced information from self-knowledge and experts.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Yeah, there's a lot there. And so it's really great that you've raised all of those points. And thank you for that, Rory. Like you said, about the body, about the mind, about the thoughts, the feelings. And there is a lot to unpack there. And this is the great thing about conversations and awareness, because until we are aware of all these different aspects of our emotional well-being or emotional health, how can we heal what we don't understand? And I like to, as well, the vision that's coming up for me while I'm listening to you is like either a plant or a fish. And if you think about a plant and you give it restricted conditions and not enough nourishment in the soil and not enough water and not enough light, it will become unhealthy. But you can guarantee when you give the plant the right water, the right nourishment and the right light, it will naturally flourish. Now, that's without the kind of brain we got. That is that subconscious or that unconscious healing. That even a plant at that level will heal in the right conditions. And the same with a fish in water. If it's unhealthy water, the fish will become sick. But you nurture the water and the fish will naturally flourish and be healthy. And our emotions are very much the same in a way, in that every human being naturally wants to feel emotionally healthy and flourish. We say that when we're emotionally healthy, we flourish, and we use the same kind of terminology. And I've seen this in a lot of people, that until we learn what is causing the sickness in the emotions and the unhealthy feelings, and we learn to replace those with healthier options and provide the right nourishment for the soul and for the mind and the body, then naturally we come back to feeling healthy. And when I use my emotional cycle diagram, you tell me a person in the world who doesn't naturally want to feel healthy, we're driven to it. It is a part of nature that we are driven to seek out happiness. But when we've got things going on around us that add stress and overwhelm all the time, it takes away that ability to feel happy and nurtured and loved and emotionally well. And then when you've got things that actually add in very harmful situations, whether it is abuse, whether it's burnout, whether, overwork, being in the wrong job, relationships falling apart, whether it's PTSD, whether it's been an accident or something, or grief and loss. And there are so many ways in which that happiness can be very much like an injury, like torn apart or broken. And it feels like we're torn or broken. And, there are songs, Rory's very much into music. There's lots of songs written about feeling torn and broken and under the weather. And so it's how we can heal that in a way and provide ourselves, like you say, with the mindfulness, with the space, with the knowledge, with the nourishment, physically, nutritionally, and through the soul, through things we do and enjoy, to rebalance that life and bring that happiness back. And there are lots and lots of ways in which people can work towards this. But it doesn't even have to be through therapy. It can be through self-love and care, through hobbies, through being in the right company, So there's lots of things we can do, as well as maybe needing therapies, coaching, mentoring as well. So, yeah.
Yay. Yeah.
Throwing it back at you, sorry. I took under a dead stop there, didn't I? But no, the healing has been a big thing. And I think if I'm going to throw in, while you're following that one up, an example actually of when my son was going through suicidal depression every single day for a year. And he was 9 years old when I took him out of school because of his suicidal depression. And this is one of the things I learned about emotional healing and giving somebody the right space to heal. Up until the week I took him out of school, he would be on screens, Game Boys, TVs, and he would want about 3 hours of screen time a day as his escape from everything that was going on in his life, in his emotions, and it was his way of coping with the overwhelm, like an addiction. And I know this is something that goes on for a lot of people, adults and teenagers and children, is that they get very addicted to those screens. And the other thing that I've seen or heard a lot of is then they are getting nagged and told off and banned from screens. And that actually is adding to the stress and the overwhelm. And the thing that happened with my son was the week I took him out of school, he went from 3 hours a day of screen time down to 1 hour by the end of the first week. Actually, probably less than that, even 10, 15 minutes. He suddenly found he didn't need that screen time. And then we went out on the weekend. Now, the week before I took him out of school, we'd been out in the car for a drive for an hour, been to a support group, we'd come home again, and he'd played his Game Boy all the way there and back in the car, wanting to play it at home. And anything that meant taking him away from his screens meant meltdowns, temper tantrums, tears, all the works. And I think a lot of parents will associate with this. And the week after I'd taken him out of school and deregistered him officially, we went to get in the car to go to the same support group. And I noticed his Game Boy was sitting on the coffee table. And I thought, well, that is unheard of. He never left to get the house without the Game Boy or a screen. So I went out to the car, before locking the house up and said, "You've left your Game Boy indoors." And he said, "Yeah, I don't need it." And I actually realised then the effect that school had had on him, the emotional trauma that had piled on him with all of the neurodiversity, with the overwhelm, the noise, the lights, the sounds, the bullying and the constant pressure of school. In that moment when he just said, "Yeah, I don't need it," I realised the burden that school had put on him. And I actually went back indoors and sat down and cried. And I realised in that moment that you give them the right conditions, they naturally start to heal themselves. You cannot order a child to feel better by telling them to come off of a game or a screen or TV. You have to find out what the root cause is, remove the root cause, and the addictions will heal naturally. And that was something I learned very early on with him. So healing is important, but so is finding the root cause of why they're not healing in the first place.
Yeah, I really appreciate the idea of even the idea of addictions. When I bring that space up, it's almost like emotions are the reactivity to our addictions, because I'd see it as positive or negative or anywhere in between addictions. And the word "add" comes to mind because of there's been something added to the beliefs from past experiences, finding evidence to form cells that store the memory of whatever thing feels either good to go to,
Yeah.
or bad, and where we will have an addiction to not wanting to look at that thing.
Mm.
The emotional response drives the addiction, but the addiction also drives the emotional response.
Yeah.
Two-way process that goes round, and so
Sorry, go on.
and so yeah, go on then.
I was going to say, because there's actually a way I can explain it on here. This is my emotional cycle diagram. So naturally, we all want to feel happy. So happy is the yellow at the top. We get dragged down into depression through whatever makes us feel sad or whatever makes us feel angry, or both. And when they're not being resolved, and the root cause of these is continuing to be a weight, like an emotional weight, drags us down. Now, down here, naturally, remember I said, everybody naturally wants to feel happy. We have a need for dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. They're all a really, really important part of emotional healing. But when the root cause of whatever has dragged anybody down here is not being resolved, and they can't naturally come back to happiness, that's where the addiction comes in as a shortcut. But when the addiction is taken away, it's instantly back down here or wherever they are in stress or anger. So that is why when you've got a child who, and I know this works for all addiction in a way, mostly, unless there's a true chemical addiction, that's the only other example. But when the addiction is taken away, they've not worked through whatever made them sad or angry. They haven't processed those emotions properly or resolved the root cause. Then the addiction taken away drops them straight back down to where they were emotionally. And that's why we have these meltdowns, temper tantrums, tears, grief, feeling suicidal, because it's a fake form of happiness. It's like pretending to be happy almost, but it's not genuine happiness. So that's where dopamine addiction comes from, screen times and anything. And for adults, we're then looking at a whole other level. I talk about children, but with adults, we're talking alcohol, we're talking smoking, we're talking sexual addiction. It could even be things like shoplifting, joyriding. You know, there are so many ways in which people find addiction. It's different for everybody. Food and chocolate. Oh, how many other addictions have we got, Rory?
Well, it's all like the way I would describe it is, again, it's all addictions, and it's only the behavior is the result of the addictive processes that are there to avoid pain.
Yeah.
So for me, when talking about addictions, it's when it normally gets talked about as an addiction to addiction to it's the addiction is there no matter what it is. So even if it's retraining the sexual addiction, for instance,
Yeah.
if it's not, again, like you said, retrained in some way but it will still be getting addicted to something else instead of that. So someone is better off getting addicted to physical exercise than smoking, for instance. But it's still, the addiction is still the root thing. There's still going to be a drive to want to do something, and that's what I like to be clear on, is that it's not about trying to take an addiction away. Otherwise, that's just a fight. It's replacing it with something, because
Yeah.
it's always an addiction. So every single thought we have is an addictive process to the belief systems from the past.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I truly thank you for that. That's powerful. And yes, the addiction is there. But when you're saying
So the
addiction
behavior,
for things, we're talking about positive rather than negative addictions. So, you know, we're all addicted to being happy in a way, but it's how we get there. And when the shortcut addiction is the one that's taking over and creating those negative behaviors, even though they feel happy doing it, whatever they're doing, but the things that very often society judges as misbehavior or illegal, criminal, all of those things, because some things really are criminal and shouldn't be an addiction. especially when it comes to sexual behaviours and shoplifting and, you know, theft and stuff like that, abuse, because the other ones, it can turn to abuse as well with meltdowns. So there's lots of stuff there as addictions, or reactive behaviours is the other one, where we do want to be moving away from them, healing that person's emotions so they can, you know, have a positive reaction in society and a positive connection with society is the word. So when, like you were saying about avoiding the pain, the addiction is avoiding the pain. And that's because to work back from depression up to happiness, we need to work through and process those emotions. And if we're not processing those emotions and we're avoiding them, that's avoiding the pain of that and not working through them. That's the difference between addiction and finding positive habits that naturally lead to a more natural, healthy happiness. And believe me, I've been there and I know what it's like when I've been in this dark space and I want to just put my phone on and play games on it all day, or binge watch Netflix and go and watch, you know, eat chocolate till the cows come home kind of thing. But I know also that when I'm in the happy place, I don't have those addictions to them in the same way. And then if I choose to watch the telly, it's a choice, not an addiction. And it feels very different making that decision to put the next movie on or something, rather than feeling like it's the only thing that I can do to feel happy in that moment because nothing else feels happy. And then even watching it in that state with that addiction, you know, watching telly, playing games, it's more like going through the motions than actually feeling happy. But to stop it almost feels like an impossibility as well. So that whole process of being addicted to something like that is, you know, having been there myself as well, I know the feelings, and I know that when you get all of the other circumstances in place, resolve the emotional issues and work through your problems and find the right strategies, like the mindfulness. For me, I use a lot of mindfulness, but with the holistic health that you do as well, and then with nutrition, exercise, mindfulness, positive habits, goal setting, there is many things. Get involved in group work, having the right company around you, hobbies that you do. There are so many ways that when you put, and it's different for everybody because we're all unique. So it's finding the parts that work for you, getting them all in place, and then that happiness. You try not being happy when everything's in place. That's impossible as well. When everything's in place, you can't help but be happy. And that's the beautiful feeling that comes at the end of all the self-work.
Lovely.
And that's the one we want everybody to experience. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think just to round it up, really, from my perspective, it's what do you want to get addicted to? Is a good question to ask. And because even something that's supposedly good for you, if the emotional healing and the whatever's causing the it's the automatic drive to as a behavior, let's say. So what do you want to automatically go to? Because and also notice where to stop and start so that something just isn't hyper fixated on and then continued, because someone can go to the gym and get addicted to it, and it may be that they're not dealing with something else in their life, so they get good results in the gym, they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and maybe there's a point where they're actually overdoing their cardiovascular work, or the muscles get so big and strong that they can't move anymore, because it's you know, it's where to stop. So when they say too much of a good thing is also tricky, it's like just it's the constant reflective learning growth cycle to check in and be conscious, the mindfulness and the consciousness to choose every day is where to look at it, because then we're consciously directing that emotional healing through our choices and actions and what we've got clear on as a vision for our health and the habits that we want.
Yeah, amazing. And like you're saying about the going to the gym, for example, I've seen that as well, where examples, documentaries I've seen where people get addicted to even going to personal development seminars, and they'll pay thousands of pounds every time and keep going to them over and over, but without putting in the self-work and without putting all of the other elements in place around your own personal life as well, and actually making those conscious choices, then turning up at the seminars alone is not enough to create the healing. And there is so much more involved in it. And we want to inspire all of you. And the other one I think we'd be remiss to miss out today is if there is trauma there, and that trauma needs to be healed first. That is when you really should be reaching out for therapy, to speak to absolutely the right person. Because with emotional healing, talking is really important. But I see a lot of posts all over the internet about talking is good, but they always miss out one thing, and that is talking to the right person. Because if you talk to the wrong person and they give you the wrong advice, it's either just going to leave you feeling stuck, feeling resentful that you've spent more money on more things that don't work, or even sending you down the wrong path altogether. So being aware of what your emotional deficit is, what you need to work on, whether it is through grief and loss, whether it is through addiction and trauma, but actually speaking to the right person and doing your own research around your own needs to create your own emotional healing. But never deny yourself that support, because you deserve better. You all do. So thank you for another amazing conversation today, Rory.
That's great. Yeah. Just since you mentioned about that, and that's a great roundup as well, is just who to contact. It is a minefield. I like to remind that it's not just about the technical expertise, it's the lived experience that potentially someone has. If it's not resonating with just, going to see someone that's got the credentials, and if that may land, that may not land, that's fine. Most likely you'll get a standard level of support, but it may not be the exact resonance with the personality. Even if it's still professional, it's still a personality resonance where there's a natural to and fro that is about listening and listening and what's the word? What's the opposite listening?
Talking. Yeah, sorry, blunt answer.
That's all right. Giving and receiving information and listening.
Yeah, there has to be some
personality types is important, and and the lived experience can really help to do that mentorship thing too. So
that is very true, actually. Yes, because it's very hard to go to therapy, when you've got somebody who's done it textbook. And that's not saying they're not good at anything, but that lived experience is really important. And I know I had that conversation with Emma the other day in a workshop I did, and we're saying about the lived experience. So, for example, for me, I supported my son through neurodiversity with the autistic spectrum, with suicidal depression. I've done the home education. I've had postnatal depression. I've also had other depression later on, which was more related to health issues, because I'd got 4 discs gone in my back, I'd put my knee out, and I'd spent 16 years with gut issues before finding out it was food allergies. Who would have known all those years it was food allergies, and a lot. And I was being tested for Alzheimer's before I finally found out it was food allergies. And Rory has actually helped me as part of my healing journey. And that was why I'd gone through depression, because sometimes there are other things in the background that you need to diagnose or find out as to why you have mental health issues in the first place, or emotional issues. Now, emotional is usually situational, whereas mental health can be more biological, neurological. And I like to separate the two. Emotions are emotions, but they can be affected by mental health. But mental health tends to be more biological, neurological, or extremely deep after going through traumatic experiences on the emotional level. But so that lived experience is really important. And I've been through a lot myself. I've supported enough people through various different routes. But for me, it is that very core, helping people to get in touch with their emotions. So if you feel like going to a therapist or a counselor or somebody or a coach or mentor is not going to help you because you don't understand your own emotions first, that's my expertise. And certainly get in touch with me for that. Emma is very much about the trauma therapy and having lived through that herself with issues around parenting and so on. She's done a number of modalities of training with hypnotherapy that can all help with that. And I know certainly for Rory with his somatic healing and his holistic healing, and you definitely helped me through a lot because I knew the emotional awareness. I dealt with most of the traumas in my life, but there was this other level that came that I was really stuck with, even with all of my knowledge, and you helped me through that so much. So thank you. And so do get in touch with any of us as well, because we've got enough lived experience between the three of us, and certainly Rory with the neurodiversity and the creativity as well. And between us, if we feel like we can't serve you, we will make sure we say so. We're not going to offer something that we feel is out of our bounds, but certainly between us, there is plenty that we can help with. But again, do your research, know what you want, and then find the right person. But we are all here for you as well. And you can keep in touch with us in the Facebook group first if you're not sure and you want to get to know more about us and connect with us, because that connection is important. So come and meet us there. So,
Awesome.
thank you, Rory. Another great conversation, emotional healing, lots of ways to do it. But say that self-help bookshelf on Facebook is the way where it's a great way to come and connect with us and just join in posts. We have things going on all week with questions and topics. We share different information about upcoming workshops we'll have, the books that we all write, it's all in there. So if you really want to come and join us, the link is either in the channel description or we'll put the link below in the description for this video as well. And a good one this week, Emma is starting a YouTube channel as well. So when she gets a few videos up and running, we'll tag her in on the list on the channel as well. So it's all happening, yay. But thank you, Rory, another amazing conversation today. And we say about connecting, this is what we connect over, having life-changing conversations about personal development strategies to help you find your higher self. So we will see you again next week for another surprise topic. By the sound of it, we haven't planned one, have we?
What about feeling love?
Oh, there we go. Another feeling, the feeling of love and the emotions of love. That's a really good one because we can cover self-love as well. Good one, Rory. All right. See you all next week for another life-changing conversation.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.